Hello and welcome back to your series of interviews with our brilliant members all over the world. I'm so delighted to be back with Priscilla Montana and Danielle Wise. Thank you so much again for coming back and for talking to us. It's great to see you. How are you both, first of all?
We're fine. Thank you for this opportunity to have a follow-up call. We love seeing you, and it's great to see you again, healthy and well.
Fingers crossed.
We're good.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I don't know where to start, if I'm honest.
It's been a lot.
I mean, we spoke back in the fall,
Yep.
and I think that, you know, when we were talking then, we were kind of expecting that by now, certainly in terms of COVID, we would be in a very different place than we find ourselves in. So let me start with COVID. How tell me how the vaccination program is being rolled out in the US.
Well, it's getting there. Some of us are waiting for the vaccinations. Primarily, it's been the group that has been in nursing homes and those that have ongoing serious health conditions. Now, supposedly, our governor has opened it to anyone 65 or over, but those are still in limited supply to some extent. I think one of the frustrating things across the board in the US is that there are many different opinions, and there's very little consistency in the process and in the information. Apparently, we're being told almost daily that there are vaccines that have yet been sent to the administration sites, and there is a danger that some of them might expire because we're not administering them quickly enough. And yet, those of us who really want them are very frustrated because we can't seem to narrow down a place where we can get the vaccines. So it's still, to be honest, pretty disorganized, and we hear about that all the time.
And the program is being rolled out, I'm guessing, not just state by state, but health system by health system?
The Center for Disease Control has issued some mandates, but then each governor has some say as to the age group and how it's going to be done. So there are centers, for example, in the Dallas area where you can, supposedly, you cannot get vaccinated without an appointment. However, we've heard of people that have just shown up at some of these centers, and after waiting in their car for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, they were able to get the vaccine. But it's sort of the luck of the draw. If you're there and they have it and you find somebody that is kind, they'll say, well, even if you don't have an appointment, we'll give you the vaccine. Other times they say, no, you need to go online, get an appointment, and come back. So it is inconsistent again.
It is inconsistent, isn't it? I mean, here there's a very, mind you, we're a much smaller country, and we have one single health authority. So, you know, it's much simpler to have clarity. But we were saying before we went onto the call, I think what's so fascinating to me is that, you know, here we are in the US and the UK seeing very positive rollouts of you know, by and large, pretty well organized programs. Talking to colleagues in Europe, you know, France is still very low in numbers of people being vaccinated. Spain is still very low. Portugal is still very low. It does seem that we're going to achieve our goals at different times.
Yes.
Which has its own impact for our industry, right?
Right. It's very difficult because they're saying that considering the number of individuals across the world that need to be vaccinated, we could be at this for another year before everybody receives a vaccine, and certainly at least another 6 to 10 months. And that's very frustrating because, again, like you said, there's so many people on hold. Their visas have been, you know, postponed or have been canceled because they can't travel. Now many of the airlines, if not all of them in the US, from what I've heard, are going to require not only a COVID-free test, but vaccines before individuals can come into the US. And I suspect it'll be the same shortly, if not already, to go abroad. So I think that's a good thing, but it still hasn't quite been totally organized.
This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of speculation, and obviously from the point of view of mobility, you know, we kind of need to know what's going to happen because you know, your clients are all still waiting to do what they want to do.
Exactly.
So tell me, what's the situation right now in terms of like work visas and coming into the States? Last time we spoke, that program had been shut down for all intents and purposes. What's happening now?
Well, we are seeing a little more movement. I think I may have mentioned last time that some of our clients, our corporate clients, have been very creative, and they've been able to go around the standard L and H visas or J's, and they've gotten some other types of temporary or special visas. So we've seen a little movement, but it's certainly not the way it needs to be and the way it was. We're focusing a great deal on domestic relocations. Okay. Those are still happening. We're also providing a lot of virtual programs where we can do virtual tours of homes. But we do have some activity, and actually so far January has been quite a busy month considering the pandemic. It's probably been busier than most of the months during the pandemic last year. We're sort of back to the numbers that we had in February, maybe January, February, and early March, close to that, but not exactly like that. But it's certainly increased, and we're seeing even more training programs, most of which we're handling virtually also around the world. Wouldn't you say, Danny?
Yeah, I definitely think, on the relocation side, we are doing more domestically. So within the US, and then group moves. A lot of corporations left California or the Northeast to go to Texas. And so that's something that we've seen more this year. And then training, in addition to the cultural, the diversity, equity, and inclusion training with Black Lives Matter and everything, that's always been part of our kind of training portfolio. But I would say, especially in the last 9 months, employees are calling on their organizations to do more. And so we've done a lot more DE&I training. And I think organizations are making it kind of a holistic view, training leadership all the way down to individual contributors, putting it part of their onboarding programs when they eventually start ramping up hiring. So it's been good, even though, because, some of our training is for expats and mobility, but a lot of it is just for people working across cultures. And we've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So we're doing more training before somebody's going into a country or culture. We've probably seen more of that than I've seen in the past couple of years. So there's movement. They're not necessarily sending people, but companies are having some international, joint ventures or acquisitions. So it's been good. It's kind of, I think it helps, kind of make up for a little bit of a slower turn on the international mobility side.
Right. I mean, certainly not, it's not what, I probably should correct what I said earlier. It's not exactly the way the movement as it was early last year, but it's getting towards that. We're seeing, I think people are getting ready to have things happen. So they're laying the groundwork on some of the preliminary relocations or the trainings. And, they're starting to, I think, in some ways, I think after waiting 10 months for things to change, they've decided, well, let's just go ahead and try to do something and get things going.
Do you know what I mean? This is a huge debate, isn't it? I mean, what's so interesting is, you say about the domestic relocation is kind of back to normal, as it were. That's just a very interesting thing from the point of view of the country, that people are confident to do that. People right. Like we were saying before the recording, that this has all got a little bit closer to all of us. We now know people who've had the virus. It's just got that little bit closer. But maybe that's why people are a bit more confident, because we kind of, we're now sort of balancing that risk against not doing anything.
Right. And in the US, there's been a really interesting movement, as Danny mentioned. People are leaving a lot of the large cities that have been greatly affected, like New York City. And there is a huge exodus of very big cities. And so that's causing real estate markets to go through the roof.
Yeah.
Housing is very high. People don't want to live in crowded places. So they're coming to Texas, the Midwest, the Southwest, even the West Coast, although California, Los Angeles in particularly, is devastated by the pandemic.
Yeah.
But some of the outlying areas. So that has kept the real estate industry and some of the relocation work going, because people are choosing to live other places and they're picking up and leaving. They just don't want to be in crowded areas. And it's kind of sad, but they're doing it for the sake of their family and they need to do it. I think the ability, the awareness that we can all work very well virtually more than ever has created a mindset that, you know, I don't have to stay here. I can go where I feel safe and I'm more comfortable, or maybe closer to family or someplace they always wanted to live in. So the demographics are changing dramatically.
And so fast, you know. I mean,
yes.
We're only, you know, sort of 10 months into this, and already corporations are responding, individuals are responding. And it's sort of happening in some parts of Europe. But I was talking to Frances yesterday, you know, Frances, our conference host, and she was saying, you know, she lives in a lovely house in the middle of, right in a very fashionable part of London. But she said, what's the point of being here when everything this wonderful city has to offer is closed?
Exactly.
You know? And
it's very depressing. It's very depressing. That's why we moved out. We go back and forth, but we spend a great deal of time at our lake house because it's safe. There's nobody around. Our only outing is going to the grocery store. And we have an ongoing debate with the manager because about 40% of the people in the store, the customers, don't wear a mask because we're out in the country. And a lot of these folks, I guess, don't believe that it's going to affect them or that they don't need to. But, you know, we feel it's safer here because really it's sad that in the city you could be in anywhere and have a problem.
Yeah, it's so true. And Danny, you were saying that to me about the masks before we started the recording. Funnily enough, here in the UK, they've just issued new guidelines and all the supermarkets have super cracked down on it. And in fact, they're now doing the, they were doing it before, but not to the same extent. Now it's like, you must be 2 meters apart. Please don't move forward until the person in front of you moves forward. You can't come into the store if the red light is showing. You can only come in if the green light is on.
That's great.
Yeah, they're taking.
Well,
that's really good. I wish they would do that.
Well, they have some of that in Dallas. They have some of that in the city here.
Yeah, but they don't enforce it all that much. Sometimes they do at Trader Joe's, but not quite so much.
Well, and
at Brookshire's, we complained when we were here at the grocery store. We complained, and the manager went down and told them everybody has to wear a mask. But we were just there yesterday, and nobody's really enforcing it. So
interesting. It is very interesting. So I'd love to just get your opinion. It's been an extraordinary couple of weeks for everyone in the wonderful US of A.
Oh my goodness.
How I mean, first of all, how are you, and what's the kind of national mood right now?
Well, we're fine. Stunned, to be honest. You know, without getting too political, I think, you know, what's going on with Trump was almost inevitable because I feel that he was just, you know, very self-serving all along, and it just culminated with this whole thing with a state capitol. So I think everyone's very disheartened and literally counting the days for him to be out of office. Now they're talking about having him, well, he has been impeached, but having a trial that may actually start the day of the inauguration, which is sort of ironic and pretty dramatic. I don't know if that's going to move forward or not, but that's what the push is right now. So I just think it's, you know, devastating and shocking that in 2021 we're dealing with these things. It's just beyond belief, especially after what we've all gone through with a pandemic, you know, as if we needed something else that was this difficult and horrible.
Do you know what, I spoke to a couple of colleagues just after, and you know, one thing I kind of always say is, you know, never forget that it's the United States that's given the world all its great freedoms. You know, always hang on to that. All the great human rights we enjoy have all come from the US, you know. This is a blip.
Yeah.
We hope.
So, I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. I think people are feeling more well, shouldn't all people, but obviously a large majority are feeling much more confident that we're having someone new that's taking over the presidency, and that also apparently wants to really take a lead in trying to resolve the situation with COVID. He's going to be much more, you know, assertive about how people can get vaccinated and precautions and medical treatments, because to be honest, Trump minimized it all and just kept saying, it's like the flu, don't worry about it.
Go away. Yeah.
So I think everybody's waiting for next Wednesday.
Yes, I think so too. I think the world is waiting for next Wednesday as well. I think it's going to be, it's a new start. It's a new way forward, and that's only, look forward to. It has been fantastic to catch up with you again. It really has. I'd love to do this again. Oh my gosh, let's do this sort of Easter time.
Sure.
See where we are. And I do hope that by then we just, every time, there's no point in making predictions, but let's just hope that, by then we're all, and Danny, I just wanted to ask you, are you homeschooling again, you were saying?
Well, last week my children went virtual. This week they're back in school.
Okay.
But you know what? We've seen in December, and like my young daughter has 2 other classes are quarantining because one of the teachers got it and another child got it. So the school's really good. If somebody gets it, everyone has to quarantine for 2 weeks. So we've seen a lot more of that in kind of November, December. And I don't know if that was because of the holiday gatherings. But, I think it's definitely like taken a toll on my children, like I think now they're kind of like, I want play dates. I want to be, and luckily in Texas, the weather's nice. It's not too cold. So they can go, we can meet somebody and, hit the soccer bar, whatever, but we don't really have a ton of people over. And I think that, now they're kind of like, okay, like
they're feeling isolation.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I think that's kind of a tough thing, but at the end of the day, they get it. I mean, my boys are 7, but they can see the news, which I don't know is a bad thing these days, I feel like, because it's so negative. But
there's only one person in this house who watches the news, and that's my 90-year-old mother-in-law. The rest
there you go.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, it's kind of, you need to know what you need to know, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Priscilla. It's been absolutely lovely to catch up with you.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
We'll catch up.
Stay well.
Thank you, Angie.
Yes, have a great weekend.
April, May, something like that.
All right,
that would be great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.